Patriots, though, they fire Jerod Mayo. Is this Mike Vrabel's job? Do we think he's going to be? Do we think it's justified?
By the way, don't be surprised if Mike Vrabel isn't in play in Jacksonville. There's already supposedly talk of the backroom mechanisms working there because those two know each other, Balky, and he would save his own behind if that were the case. So,
and Balky would bend the knee to Vrabel.
Of course, until they start eating each other alive.
Then you know how that will bad mouth behind closed doors.
You know how that goes. So that's a disaster. But Mayo, I think, was undone by everything. The whole thing. The coaching, the way he handled it, calling your team publicly soft early in the season. You can't do that. And look, as much as you want to call him soft in a meeting room, that's one thing, but not publicly. And then there were a couple other situations where he didn't handle him.
Ramondre Stevenson isn't going to play. He fumbles too much. Oh, Ramondre Stevenson starts. Or this quarter, Jacoby Brissett, the way that he characterized his training camp play or his preseason play, going back and forth, right? That's how it was with the Jacoby Brissett thing. I forget. It's been 20 weeks
Drake's
now.
Been better, and then we're starting Jacoby.
Yeah.
And then there's the other part where he threw the offensive coordinator under the bus publicly.
I particularly remember the one that stuck out to me as a player was when they were called soft. And we talked about it in here. I had an issue with it then. I still have an issue with it now. Look, as a rookie head coach in the NFL, not a lot of people expect you to have success. Okay. You usually are going to get a second year. We talked about this yesterday on the pod. There's things that are out of your control, like the roster, like, the talent level. And then there's things that are in your control, like the way that you handle the media, the way that you speak to your team through the media, the way you address your team in team meetings. I have serious doubts about the messaging inside those buildings behind closed doors, because with open doors, with an open mic, I had problems with the things that I heard. So for Jerod Mayo, I fully anticipate him being a coach again. Maybe not next year. He'll probably be a coordinator or a position coach somewhere, but he'll take this experience and run with it. But Robert Kraft, with all the success they experienced in New England, he doesn't have a lot of patience for that.
Well, not only that, if you let it fester, it becomes worse. And so why not stop it before it gets worse? And a lot of times teams go, oh, we'll bring him back for another year, see if he fixes it. And then usually it gets worse. So if you don't think it's going to be, you think it's going to be a problem, it's been a problem, then get rid of it. And so I think being Vrabel out there and seeing the Jets wanting to talk to Vrabel, I think that kind of influenced the decision a little bit.
Well, Vrabel, I hope he went into the Jets meeting and cornered Woody Johnson, dropped an Xbox off at the front door, and he was like, hey, Brick, you can play this. His son, you can play this Xbox. I'm going to go talk to your dad about the Jets. Corners him and is just like, if I'm here, you stay in your office. I'm going to handle the football stuff. He's like, I've seen it happen with Bill Belichick before. It needs to happen again to get you guys out of the mud as an organization.
I agree. They need to change the culture in that place.
Yeah.
In the worst way. And they need to have the owner quit being so much of an influence.
I forget who it was yesterday. Somebody from the Bears was asked about Mike Vrabel potentially interviewing or getting hired by the Bears. And gosh, I forget the guy's name, but he looked at the camera and they were like, what happens if Vrabel becomes a coach? And he says, a lot of shit's going to change around here. I think he'd been on the roster in Tennessee, maybe with Mike Vrabel. Yeah. And it was clear to me, like what you're saying, the culture has to change. Well, a guy like Vrabel will rip the roots right up out of the ground.
Kevin Byard then?
It wasn't Kevin Byard.
I don't know.
It was a linebacker.
All right. Some DC and OC firings. Lou Anarumo out as DC for the Bengals. Seahawks fire Ryan Grubb after one season. Gus Bradley out as DC for the Colts. Any of these stand out in any way, shape, or form?
Gus kind of saw it coming.
Yeah,
he knew. Look, Gus has been running the same scheme for decades. It's kind of they don't change. I love Gus. He's a great guy, but you got to change with the times a little bit, and they didn't. And by the way, the general manager in Indianapolis is back, and should he be? No.
He's mastered the art of doing just enough to keep his job every single year, it seems like.
Well, he's also really good with the local media and the media and stuff, so he gets a pass that way.
But he just like skates by where it's like they never go so bad that they fire him, but they never do well enough that they don't fire him.
Since he's been there, every other team in the division has won it at least twice, and he hasn't won it.
That's since Grigson left?
Yeah.
Wow. And now people are yearning for the Grigson days.
No one's yearning for the Grigson days.
All I heard about was how bad Grigson was for so long.
Grigson wasn't that bad.
That's what I'm saying.
Whoa, Grigson was bad.
He had some bad drafts, but Grigson was great.
It was Andrew Luck was great.
He was really good.
Yeah, but that gave
Ballard hasn't
had great drafts. I know. I'm not defending Ballard in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying Ryan Grigson was not.
Anarumo, look, come on. You watch that defense all year. Yeah.
It's not the same defense he's had success with. I mean, sometimes it's indicative of talent. Sometimes it's indicative of scheme. I'm not going to go out here and say that the NFL has changed so much that Lou Anarumo's scheme or his knowledge of football is out the door as it currently stands in the modern NFL. But you don't have enough players on that defense. It's not the same group that we watch. And people talked about, the Chiefs don't want to see the Bengals in the playoffs. That's bullshit. It's not the same team.
No,
that was 5 years ago. Flush it down the toilet.
They can't.
Lou Anarumo will get picked up somewhere like Vic Fangio got picked up, and he'll have success. That's what I believe.
Can I just read off Ryan Grigson's top 75 picks?
Yeah.
Outside. So it's Andrew Luck was obviously his first one. Kobe Fleener, Dwayne Allen. He drafts back-to-back tight ends after he drafted Andrew Luck. Bjorn Warner, Jack Mewhort, Philip Dorsett, DeJon Smith, Ryan Kelly, TJ Green. Those were his top 7.
Jack Mewhort, Ohio State.
No, Ryan Kelly's a good player.
Ryan Kelly's a solid center.
Yeah.
He drafted
Bjorn
one
Warner,
solid
Florida
center
State,
with,
WDE.
Yeah, Florida State.
A little WDE action.
Those picks were.
Bjorn Werner.
I got a soft spot for WDEs.
He did not do much in the league.
Those are white DNs for people that are listening.
Yeah. The Ryan Grubb firing to me was the most surprising. Obviously, Anarumo, Bradley, writing was on the wall. This was a first-year OC, and I lamented all year how he did not do enough to protect that offensive line. And he wanted 5 out. He acted like they were back at Washington, and the offensive line he had at Washington, college Washington, was awesome.
Monsters.
And one of the best in college football, and they could do that. Seahawks was one of the worst in the NFL, and they couldn't do that, and got not only Geno Smith killed, but then obviously we saw when Sam Howell's back there, it was just like no chance. So I'm not sure.
It was a weird hire based on Mike McDonald and what you think he wants to be, because he's a defensive guy.
He wants to run the ball. Coach, yeah.
And they hadn't aired out.
Right. And it was a weird hire. That goes back to somehow, some way, they must have promised each other something down the road. You know what I mean? That's a big problem in this business, by the way, is you promise your buddies and your pals, when we get a job, you're going to be on my list. You're going to get, I'm going to hire you.
You got an office in my new building when it happens.
Somebody had told me, and I haven't actually ever looked this up, but I should, that when Bill Cowher hired his staff in Pittsburgh, he didn't hire one guy that he was buddies or
really.
So, because
I'll ask him that this Sunday.
Yeah, ask him.
I will.
Because when guys go into meetings, and I've talked to many an owner about it, they want to see your depth chart of coaches 7-8 deep. If you don't get him, I'm going to him. If you don't get him, you go to him.
It's like a draft board.
And I've told many coaches, I said, you need to do that. Guys on the way up, I said, have your chart. Oh, so when you go in, you fancy it up and throw it out. The owner will go, oh my God, this guy's so prepared. And make sure it's not just guys that are your buddies.
Yeah.
Because you want good coaches, whether you know them or not. Like somebody had told me, God, I'm trying to think, who was it? He came out and he had one of his buddies as his offensive coordinator. It didn't work. The owner looked at it and said, no, that's not going to work. Or the GM said it's not going to work. But it was one of his buddies. He pushed for him. So you hurt yourself in that scenario.
Yeah.